Hey everyone, this is going to be my guide on how to play Common Ground World competitively so that you can earn rewards such as Gala tokens or NFTs, which can give you an advantage in the game, or you can choose to trade these NFTs with other players for other forms of currency. Common Ground World is one of the many games available in the Gala Games Platform over at app.gala.games. I have a link in the description of the video that will take you to this site, and you can also create an account. Once you've created an account, you select games at the top right and you'll be able to see their list of games. Among those games is Common Ground World. Common Ground World is a farming simulation type of game. It is a competitive game as it features a competition every week with prizes, and these competitions require a lot of strategy, so it is a strategy based game. It is free to play, so anybody can play it. You don't have to spend any money and you can still earn rewards. However, there are pay to win aspects because you can purchase NFTs that can give you advantages in the game in order to place higher in these competitions and potentially earn bigger prizes. Once you click on play, you will eventually load up to the homepage of Common Ground World and you'll be able to see 3 different sections. First of all, let me explain the general purpose and goal of the game. The idea is you craft different items and you can sell these items for cash and points. Points are also referred to as stars. The more stars you have, the higher placement you will have on the leaderboard during a competition, and the idea is to have more stars than anybody else so that you can be placed higher in the leaderboards and get a bigger and better prize. So that's the goal, to sell items and gain more stars. Every single week there is a competition, and this competition has a different set of rules each time, to which the player base refers to as the meta, the most effective tactical advantage in the game. And the meta usually involves a specific item that has its stars boosted, so that would be the main item that players would want to craft and sell in order to place high in the leaderboards. For this next competition happening on April 30th, the meta will be throw pillows. So pillows will be the most competitive item to craft and sell in order to place high in the competition. So I'm going to explain these 3 game modes really quickly. The one on the left is called Common Ground Mode. This mode operates on a different set of rules. Unlike the competition, it is much slower and it's intended to be a casual way to play the game. I do not recommend playing this game mode because it's not going to teach you anything that you need to know about how to play competitively, and there are no exclusive rewards for this game mode. The general idea of the game mode is that you sell items for cash and you can use that cash to clear up spoiled soil and expand your town, and that's the whole idea. Just expand your town as much as you can. There's no exclusive rewards for this, and it won't teach you much about the game since the actual rules are different and it has a much slower progression system. So in the middle you can find the casual server. This is basically your practice server whenever there's not a competition happening, or even when there is, but you can go in here and practice your town with the same rules as you would have in the competition. So I highly recommend you go into the casual server and practice whenever there's not a competition going on. That way you can get a feel of the starting town and come up with a plan on what you're going to do for the upcoming competition. Any competitive player will already have a design ready to go when the competition begins. That way they know exactly what to make and be able to make more of that product quickly, and that's going to, you know, give them an advantage and they'll be able to place higher in the leaderboards. So I do recommend you practice before the competition starts, and that'll give you a good advantage on what you need to do. So to the right is the event section. Once you enter this, you'll see a lot of other sections here, and depending on when you visit this, you'll either see the competition currently going on or the practice competition if the competition hasn't started yet. Since the competition hasn't started yet, I am seeing 2 practice events, and you can click on the information icon and it's going to give you a disclaimer saying this is a test competition and it will not give out rewards. These act the same as the casual server. It basically gives you another server to practice design. However, these are on a timer and these will delete your town once the actual competition begins, which will be this one right here. I do recommend practicing on casual because this town will not restart until you decide to restart it. But you can also choose to practice on these, so long as you understand it will be deleted by the time the official competition starts up. The official competition always begins on Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time or 12 p.m. Central time. You can check the Gala Games Discord for the official time, and always do make sure to check the Gala Games Discord just in case there are any adjustments to the starting time of the competitions. Besides that, you can check the leaderboard placements for the competition that happened the previous week. That would have been the sushi boat competition, and that was my leaderboard placement for that competition. You want to be in the Gala Games Discord and check out the Common Ground World announcements channel, because that's where the competition information is going to be communicated first. Now we know that the upcoming competition is going to be a throw pillows meta. That's the item that we're going to want to make because it's going to give out the most amount of stars and be the most competitive for this competition. We're also given a lot of information such as the starting biome, the trade timer, as well as how much gasoline it costs per trade, and the biome edges. It also says the competition start time right here, April 30th, and it ends 3 days later on May 3rd. Right now the competitions last a total of 3 days, and there's also information on the reward structure as well as the craft requirements for the throw pillows, and other information such as what is boosted in cash and what is boosted in stars. We know here that wool is cash boosted to 11,000, and that makes it a good item to sell in order to get more cash to continue building up your town. There's a lot of information available in the Gala Games Discord, and you can also check out the CGW FAQ channel because there is a lot of information there as far as how the reward pool goes and other frequently asked questions. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is the Town Star Playbook. This is a spreadsheet I created that has a lot of information for the game. And just so you know, Common Ground World used to be called Town Star, but then it got rebranded and renamed, but I've decided to keep the spreadsheet named the same, so that's why it's still called the Town Star Playbook. I do have a link to this in the description of the video, and in here there are many different tabs, so you can see all the information you need to know about all the buildings, what items are crafted in each building, the cost to build, workers, wages, movement speeds, craft times, and what positively or negatively impacts the craft times, as well as what proximity effects are emitted from the building and how exactly that looks like with the tile system in the game. There's also a list of all the items, how much cash and stars they give out, what building used to craft them, what building is the item stored in, and any other workers that are required to pick up the item, as well as the craft requirements. If you're a brand new player, you're not going to know what any of the NFTs do, so I do have a list here showing you all the information for all of the NFTs, and also a page here for the competition list. This gives you a chart on how the reward structure looks like. All this information for the reward structure comes from the official Gala Games Discord. The reward structure works as follows. Top 1200 will receive Gala, and the higher you place in the leaderboard, the more Gala you'll receive. So if you end at 1200th place by the time the competition ends, you will receive 100 Gala, which as of recording this, the current price of Gala is right here, 0.0453 approximately, and 100 Gala would be $4.53 worth of USD. And as you can see right here, if you manage to rank 100th place by the time the competition ends, that would be 3,500 Gala or $158.42 USD. All that information is going to be here to make it easier for you to see, and I do have information for all of the previous competitions, as well as the price of Gala at the time that the rewards were paid out. Competition rewards are paid out usually within a week. Competitions will end on Friday. They can be paid out as early as the following Monday, but they could take all week. They could take as long as next Friday. In some rare cases, they are delayed further, but usually they're paid out within a couple of days. But this is an important tool for you to be competitive in the game because of all the information it provides. I also want to thank all the supporters of the channel, those of you who support me on Patreon and YouTube membership, as it helps me continue to have time to update this spreadsheet every single week and add any new information for any new crafts or buildings or NFTs NFTs that get introduced in the game. So now I'm going to start a new town and talk about what my thought process and what exactly I'm going to do for the next competition. Whenever you click play, you'll see the town setup. You click the information icons to see the information for all of the biomes, but I also have this information on the Town Star Playbook. You can see right here in the in-game information section, it's going to explain all the information for each biome as well as the proximity effects, so I highly suggest checking that out. And it also shows the trade time and gasoline cost right here. After this loads up, it's going to display the message of the day, which should also have the information for the meta as well as information for the new NFT that is released with this competition. And this is the starting town that we are given. Each week, the starting town will be different. It's going to have a different layout of buildings that you start with, a different biome, which comes into play as it determines how exactly you're going to strategize your build. This competition gave us a desert, which also included an oil seep. Oil seep is very important as it provides passive crude oil, and I'll be able to use that for crafting petroleum from the refinery. So I'm going to want to have a gasoline set up somewhere near this area. You start off with 40 gasoline every single time. Gasoline is used every time you trade a batch of items using the trade depot. If you run out of gasoline and you don't have enough money to build and craft more gasoline, then you will be stuck and you will have to start over. So one of the goals at the start is to get all the cash that you need to start up gasoline production, but you're also still going to need cash to build everything else that you need to build. So at the start, I am given 2 sheep pens, which is great, and they are collecting feed from the feed mills. Feed mills are using wheat to craft feed, and the ranchers are picking up that feed, taking it to the trough to feed the sheep. I also have a lumberjack that collects wood and takes it directly to the sheep pens. Once the sheep pens have the wood that they need, it takes it to the woodshed. And the river is giving me up to 5 passive water, so that's why I don't need to manually craft water for these sheep pens. And I also have some ponds here providing passive water to these wheat fields, so I don't need to manually craft water for that. But I do have a well to manually craft water. This will come in handy for when I am building ponds. I'm not going to use NFTs for this guide, but there are some NFTs that I cannot turn off, and these do affect the amount of cash I start with, since usually you do start off with 25,000 cash, but I start off with a little bit more. And it also affects the building cost, so my buildings will cost 25% less versus normal, but this shouldn't make too much of a difference. It will just affect how quickly I can collect the cash that I need to progress. So first thing I want to do here is increase my wool production, and I don't like this setup that we are given by crafting feed and taking it to the trough. When it comes to livestock and without the use of NFTs, it is more efficient to build meadows and have them close to the sheep pens, as these meadows are able to craft feed without needing any other items, and then the sheep pens can just quickly go to the meadows to get all the feed that they need. This will be more efficient for wool production than having to craft feed this way. So I'm going to place down several meadows here, and I'm going to get rid of this feed production setup that is going to give me some money back. I'm also going to get rid of the wheat fields and the silo and the farmer house. I'm not going to use any of that, and that'll give me a good amount of cash. So now I have these ponds that I'm also not using, and I can sell those ponds for 2,500 each. It gives me even more cash. With all that extra cash, I will be able to build more sheep pens, but I want to make sure that I have at least a plan of how I'm going to do all of this. So now I'm going to introduce you to Build Hub. This is what we in the community call a visualizer. There are many different tools for this. Build Hub, this one in particular, is created, modified, and updated by Crypto Dude and Stan. So shout out to both of them working hard to keep this up to date and continually keep updating it with the new content that gets added to the game. Website for this is build-hub.net. I do have a link to this in the description of the video. When you first come in here, you will more than likely get a blank board like this. And what you want to do is go to biome and change the biome to whatever biome we were given. In this case, it's the Desert East. And this will give you a general idea of what the starting town looks like. Now, this isn't exactly what the starting town looks like. We are actually given more buildings, and they will tend to do that. They'll give us different buildings so it won't be exactly what you see here. And we were also given a river on the north and south edge, so I can click on these edges and it will change it. We were also given desert edges, but that doesn't really matter. So that is what the starting town, the default starting town looks like. Now I did already create a stage right here showing what the actual starting town looks like. That includes the sheep pens and the tree farms. You can use this tool to create multiple stages, and it will help you plan out how you're going to create your town. You can, if you have no idea how to use this, I'm going to do my best to explain certain things. But you can also click the settings button at the top right and click on controls, and it'll explain all the controls in order to understand how to use the visualizer. But most of the time I'm going to be in the planner section, as that's going to allow me to click on the building and place it on the grid. And whenever I need to delete something from the grid, I right click that tile and it will delete that section, as you can see. So what I did in game is I actually didn't delete these roads yet, but I deleted a lot of those spots right there, and I added meadows. Actually added these meadows right here, and I deleted everything, all of these buildings right here. I deleted the ponds, something like that. That's where I am at right now. What I want to do first is increase my wool production. Sheep pens require 5 passive water. Well, it doesn't have to be passive, but it's better if it is passive. It requires 5 water, and the rivers provide up to 5 water, as you can see. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ponds give 2 water. So I actually want to have tree farms on the line, on the row closest to the river, and then I want to have sheep pens on the row on above that. So what I mean is I want this entire row to be tree farms, which means I would eventually get rid of those 2 sheep pens, and then I want to have the second row have sheep pens. Now the problem is that this row only has 4 passive water, so I'm going to have to supply more water to it, and I know that I'm not going to be able to have all of these sheep pens, and the way I'm going to do that is by building ponds. If I place on a pond here, I can see that these are going to have 5 passive water now, and I need to try to accomplish the same for these other parts. So I can try to place down one more pond here somewhere, and most of these will have 5 passive water with the exception of this one, so I'm not actually going to build that sheep pen. I could also just make another pond, but I'm going to find another way around that. And I'm eventually going to delete all these and build meadows in those spots. Alternatively, if I wanted to delete a lot of things, I can also click and drag like so, and then click on delete. That will delete all of those tiles. I'm going to go ahead and place down all of these meadows, since I want the meadows to be in front of the sheep pens, and that should provide me a good way on how to make a lot of wool. So I'm going to work on that process, starting off with the pond. So in the meantime, as you can see, I am making wool slightly quicker, 4 wool, but I'm going to need 10 wool before I can sell my first batch of wool for 110,000, since that's what it's cash boosted at, giving 11,000 for each wool. So I can actually do this process automatically. I'll go to the settings in the top left, and there is an option called auto sell. It's also referred to as auto trade. I want to turn this on, and I want to add wool to this list. I'll add it at a sell at amount of 10, but the amount could also be 1 or 0. What that's going to do is, as soon as it hits that quantity and it's able to be sold, it's going to sell it with the trade vehicle I have, and that's going to allow me to sell items while I'm not paying attention. I don't have to come in here and manually sell it myself. Another important option here is update town offline. I want to turn this on because this will allow me to run the game offline. This is referred to as offline mode, or also fast forward. The way this works is whenever I decide to exit out of the game, my game will not be running, but it is going to keep track of how long it's been since I haven't been online. So whenever I get back on the game and I had this option turned on, it's going to fast forward my town depending on the amount of time that I wasn't online. That's why it's referred to as fast forward mode, and that's going to allow me to progress in the game, or make it appear like I progressed in the game even though I wasn't playing. This allows you to play the game without having to have the game on the entire time. Now, you do want to make sure you have a sustainable town, you want to make sure everything is balanced so that none of these storages get stuck with too much of a certain item, and then you won't be able to make the item that you are actually trying to sell. And you also want to make sure you're crafting enough gasoline to sell all of the items. But assuming you will get to that point before you go offline, you do want to have this option on right away, just in case you happen to get disconnected for a while, and by the time you connect back to the game, you'll be able to progress and make up for that time you got disconnected. In the meantime, you probably would have been selling wool or something. So it is important to have both of these options on and understand how to use them properly in order to be competitive in the game. So I'm at 7 wool, and like I planned out on my visualizer, I do want to make some ponds here. The builder is going to go to the well and manually grab water and supply it to the pond. I'm probably going to want another well, and I'm going to want a couple of builders. Craft another well there and make a few more builders. And then I'm going to do the same for the other ponds. There's going to be a pond right here, and there's going to be another pond right here. And then I'm going to want more tree farms and more meadows. So this is going to be deleted. Eventually I will need more wood in order to craft more wool, since I'll have more sheep pens. And whenever I get to the point that I'm crafting throw pillows, I'm also going to need wood in order to craft lumber, as it's one of the craft requirements. So after I sold the first batch of wool, I got some more money. I went ahead and placed down the tree farms and the meadows, and one of the ponds is finished building. With this extra money, I am now able to build out a couple of extra sheep pens. Just gonna make sure that I have 5 passive water whenever I place them down. So I'm going to start by placing 2 right there, and I placed these meadows down earlier, but I'm going to go ahead and replace them with sheep pens now that I have a plan of how I'm going to do my wool setup at the start. I am also going to want more lumberjacks and eventually more rancher houses to scale up my wool production. So I am going to have to think of a road setup or structure of the roads on how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go back to the visualizer and I'll mess with the roads just a bit. Eventually I'm going to want to move this out the way. Maybe I can start off by having some roads here, and I can make a setup like this. I will have to move that storehouse. I have somewhat of a road setup like this. I should also start to think about how I'm going to set up the gas production eventually. That's not going to be my main focus, but I do want to have an idea of how I'm going to set up gasoline. So I want to pay attention to crude oil. I'll change this overlay display right here, which was showing me water, and make it so where it's showing me crude oil. And I want to have the refinery that's going to make petroleum have 2 crude oil. That way I won't have to deal with making oil pumps, which will save me some time and some space. I also need that refinery to be next to a water pump, and I'm going to need 2 water pumps and 2 power plants in order to provide all the passive water drums and energy required for the refinery that's going to be making gasoline. Usually the standard setup for that looks something like this: a pond so that water pumps can be placed next to that pond, and then power plants have to touch the water pumps, so like that, and then the refinery in between them can be the one making gasoline. Power plants do need a paved road, otherwise you won't be able to build them or they won't operate, so something like that. And then I will of course need the refinery that's making petroleum. That can be placed right here, and it will have the crude oil that it needs to make petroleum, and the power plants will also have crude oil needed to easily make energy. I'm also going to need a fuel storage to store the petroleum and the gasoline, so that can go there. And I want to double check the display for the dirty. Dirty will reduce the craft time of some buildings such as livestock and crops, and these buildings also cast shade, but I know already that they cast dirty, so I can just check dirty. Fuel storage also casts dirty. As you can see, it's not going to cast any dirty on my sheep pens, so right there in that spot, that is going to work as long as I don't build any sheep pens where dirty is being casted, or else that would slow them down. That gives me an idea of how I'm going to have my gasoline setup work, and I can connect that road right here, and I will more than likely have more meadows like this. This is probably going to be meadows, but I can always mess with this idea as I build it. And I'm going to need a new place for my storehouse. Let's say right there for now, and a place to store wood. I'm going to, instead of building a wood shed, I'm going to build a lumber yard because that stores 20 wood or lumber or oak wood instead of just 10, since the wood shed only stores 10. So this is more efficient to have. Once I have those storages, I'm also going to want more lumberjacks and more ranchers. Eventually these will be upgraded to ATVs and the lumberjacks will be upgraded to loggers. So there's an idea of what I'm going to do. I'm also going to get rid of the wood shed. Yeah, I think this is what I want to focus on first. So I'm going to work on building all of that out. I will have to wait a while to make sure I have all the cash that I need to build that out. But I'm not going to worry about the gasoline stuff just yet, just the wool production. I'm still working on this pond. I did build out these sheep pens. I do want to rotate the sheep pens. That is a good idea to have the sheep pens face the meadows directly. That way they don't have to go around the building and in the back in order to deposit the feed. That does take up more time. And I'll be able to I'll build out one more sheep pen here, but I also wanted to get started on the road structure. Starting from here, I'm going to build out some dirt roads, and I'm going to just skip over this part until I'm done. Okay, I've mostly completed the idea. I've added several more sheep pens. Most of the buildings, I did keep the 2 wells for the time being as I'm using them to build that pond, which just got finished building. So now I'll get rid of the 2 wells and fill in the blanks at a ranch house and that lumberjack that was missing. And I need just a few more sheep pens. After this is all built, I want to see how much wool is being produced per hour. And the way I'll be able to do that is by clicking on this arrow at the left, and that's going to open up the production monitor. This is going to show me how much of each item I've gathered, the rate per hour, and any amounts that I have lost. So I've lost some feed and some wood. I even lost 1 wool. That must have been from earlier. It's also going to show me how long it's been running. And this is telling me that I am making 95 wool per hour. And that is not that accurate because I've been making changes while it has been running. So the number is more than likely higher, and that's why it continues to go up since I'm continuing to make more sheep pens. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to consistently be resetting this as I continue to make changes every so often. So I went ahead and reset it, and I'm going to wait a couple of minutes to see what my production rate is now and how this is moving along before I decide to make any additional adjustments to potentially increase my wool production rate further. Another idea I could do is make this exact setup over on the north side, seeing as I also have a river there. And that is probably a good idea, at least for the initial cash rush. Eventually, once I'm actually working on the pillow meta and I'm trying to get all the buildings in, I'm probably going to have to get rid of that. But initially, that will probably be a good idea. For now, I'm just going to leave this running for just a couple of minutes and try to get an idea on how it's doing. And in the meantime, I'm going to probably be looking at the visualizer and seeing what other changes I can make to progress. So I'm going to create a new stage on the visualizer. I'll go to the build manager section and a new stage. This is going to be, well, I probably should have made a new stage before I started doing all these changes because this was supposed to be how the start town looks like. So I'm going to do stage 2. Let's say stage 2. I'll probably rename this to something else. And this will probably, I'll do the same setup as I did down here. That'll get me more wool. So I'm going to do that real quick and then show you. Okay, so basically I copied the bottom and I can do it at the top just to get more wool. Let me take a look at my town. It's only been 5 minutes. Seems like it's doing 250 wool per hour. And by the looks of it, it's using almost all the meadows. I might actually be able to get by with a few more sheep pens. So what I could do is get rid of maybe these two, put sheep pens there. That might be able to use up all the other meadows. It's a little hard to tell. It's a trial and error, but I'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to get rid of 2 of these and add 2 more sheep pens, and we'll see how that looks like. I'm going to do the same thing at the top like I showed you on the visualizer. I'm going to build out all the tree farms, sheep pens, and meadows. The only thing I am trying to avoid with doing that is having the sheep go all the way from the south side to the north side to get those meadows. If that is happening, that just means that I don't have enough meadows or I have too many sheep pens. So I'm going to have to try to avoid that. And this is all for the sake of trying to get a lot of wool at the start to get all the cash that I need to build everything quicker. Okay, so I'm done building that up, and I also decided to have this row also be meadows instead of the roads. Eventually, I'm pretty sure I'll need like some roads here to place some more buildings, but now I am making 350 wool per hour. This number should also be going up since I haven't reset the production monitor since about half an hour ago, and that will make me 4 million cash per hour, which is really good. I've already used up 20 gasoline, so I have 20 gasoline left. So at this point, I should focus on getting everything that I need to work on the gasoline production. So I'm going to need to build 2 water pumps, and I'm also going to need to collect energy in order to craft lumber and also to build the power plants. So first of all, I'm going to build the water pumps right next to the pond. This is going to require oak wood, so I'm going to have to replace some of the trees with oak wood trees, and I need to make sure that I have enough storage to store the oak wood at. And I can either build more lumber yards, but I'm probably just going to flush this just to make sure that my lumberjacks will be able to collect the oak wood and actually store it here for my builders to then pick up and finish building the water pumps. I also need a setup to collect energy with, so that's going to require 3 things. First is a warehouse. I'm going to need a warehouse in the end to store the yarn and the pillows at, but I haven't decided where exactly that's going to be. So for now, I'm just going to put down a warehouse here to store energy, and I want to build a wind turbine at least 2 tiles away from it. That way I'll be able to craft energy at the fastest craft time possible, because the wind turbine is negatively impacted by shade. That's why I don't want to have it close to any building, at least at the start. Energy won't be an issue once I've already built the power plant, because then it'll be very easy to craft it. So for now, I'll have the wind turbine there, and I'm also going to need a worker to pick up the energy from the wind turbine. The worker house casts 2 shade, this one, so I can't have it too close to the wind turbine either, but I can have it right here since the 2 shade won't hit the wind turbine. So this setup right here will work. I probably want to speed up the process, and in order to do that, I would want to have 2 wind turbines. Once again, got to make sure it isn't being hit by any shade. I think I could do one right here. So put a wind turbine in this location, and I'm going to need 2 energy for every lumber that I make, and the power plants will also require 10 energy each to build, but as long as I can build one, then getting the energy for the second one won't take that long. I am going to need a lumber mill to make lumber for some buildings, as well as I will need to make lumber in the end in order to craft the yarn. I'm planning to have the lumber mill right here. If I need another one, I'll also put it there. I'm not exactly sure how many I'll need, but assuming I will need 2 of them, I can use those 2 spots. Eventually they will have the 2 passive energy that they need from this power plant, and they will also have the water drum that they need passively from this water pump right here. So now that the lumber mill is built, I can craft lumber. I'm making the energy for it. I already have the water pump giving me the water drum for it, and it'll just collect wood from all the trees that I have. No, the lumberjacks will collect the wood and take it to the lumber mill, or if there's already wood in the lumber yard, then the lumber mill worker will go and collect the wood from the lumber yard. Once I make lumber, it's going to be stored in the lumber yard as well. I'm first going to use that lumber to pave these 2 roads, because I will need both of those roads paved before I can build the power plants. Oh, I'm also also going to remove the oak trees because I already got all the oak wood that I need in order to build both of these water pumps. I notice I'm not getting enough wood for everything, seeing as I have so many sheep pens to deal with and I'm trying to make lumber and build things. So I am going to add a couple of more temporary lumberjacks. Now that the paved road has been built, I'm going to start off by just making one power plant, making the one closer to my lumber mill since I do want that passive energy once this one has finished building. I'm going to keep an eye out on my lumber. Once I have 10 lumber here, I'm going to turn off my lumber mill so that I can collect the energy I need to finish building this off. And I'm also going to reset my production monitor. I see that it's telling me I'm making 400 wool per hour. That's amazing. That's about 4.4 million cash per hour from the wool. And it might even be a little higher than that. I haven't reset my production monitor since I built all of this. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and reset it and see what my actual wool production rate from this wool setup is. So in the meantime, I'm going to think about how many items I'm going to need in order to craft the throw pillows. So the build hub does have a calculator where you can select the item and it's going to show you exactly how many items you do need. It hasn't been updated to include the throw pillow since it is a new item, but I have a general idea of the amount of items I will need in order to make it. Throw pillow requires 2 wool yarn, 2 cotton yarn, and 8 cotton. But if I break those down, each cotton yarn requires 5 cotton, 1 lumber, 1 energy. Each wool yarn requires 5 wool, 1 lumber, 1 energy. The energy I can get passively from the power plant, so I'm not too worried about that. And the cotton is also required for the throw pillow. In total, for each throw pillow, I'm going to need 18 cotton, 10 wool, 4 lumber. That's 20 wood, but I'll also need 1 wood for each wool that I make from the sheep pen, so that's another 10 wood, so it's a total of 30 wood. That gives me an idea of what production rates I should be looking at whenever I'm trying to produce all the items that I need in order to make the throw pillows. Now this is an easy item to make. A lot of the other items that we make in other competitions are more difficult. This is one of the new player friendly ones, so I'm able to basically calculate that in my head. But for some of the items that require so many different items to actually craft the item, yeah, it can be complicated, which is why this calculator really helps out with that. I really just need to build this power plant and then I can quickly start up on gasoline production. I am just going to wait until that is done. I'm still waiting for the power plant to build, but I'm already thinking about the next step on what I'm going to do for crafting the throw pillows. So I know I'm going to need several fabric plants to make cotton yarn and wool yarn, and I need to make sure that they have the 1 passive energy that they need. I am displaying the energy right here. I can have 3 fabric plants making wool yarn right here and 3 fabric plants making cotton yarn right here. The fabric plants do need to have a paved road, unlike the other buildings that need a dirt road. And I'll have 2 art and decor shops to make the throw pillows with. I'll need a silo for the place to store cotton at, a warehouse to store the yarn and the throw pillows, and storehouses to store the wool. I'm not sure yet if I will have sheep pens on both sides. I might be able to, but it's just going to depend on how many other buildings I will need. That gives me an idea of how I'm going to have my fabric plants and art and decor shops. Now I'm also going to need a place to gather cotton from, and I want to do that close to this silo, so somewhere on this side. I'm going to display the water. Cotton requires 4 water. I might be able to get rid of this pond and utilize just these spots right here to make cotton. I don't know exactly how many cotton fields I'll need right now, but I can try to work with that. And I might still be able to use all those sheep pens. I'm not exactly sure. And I could probably have a road closer to the cotton like that. And I may be able to have some other buildings here. So I haven't really thought about the other buildings yet, but I will need to work on that as well. I'll have ATVs. The awesome thing about ATVs is that they only cast 1 shade, so I can have them closer to crops without impacting them with shade. So I might be able to do something like this on this spot. I'll need to place down several loggers as well to collect all the wood that I need, and tractors in order to pick up the cotton. It would be more ideal to have the tractors closer to the cotton fields like that. They'll know know exactly how many tractors I'll need, but something like that might work. And then I'll have all these other spots to place down other buildings, like more ATVs, more loggers, more tractors. As for the trade depot, I haven't moved it. I don't think I may have to move it. I might be able to just keep it there. I don't really see another location I could use. I also have a spot here that I'm not going to have a road next to, so I won't be able to place down a building there other than a builder house. So I may just dedicate that spot for a builder house, that one right there. And yeah, I'm just going to have to experiment with the amount of ATVs and loggers that I'll need in order to craft all the items that I need to craft. So that's going to take some experimenting in the game. For right now, I'm just trying to get an idea. I could maybe do something like that. I might not actually need these roads. I could put the meadows back, just not exactly sure, because if I don't need that many buildings, then yeah, I'll be able to pull this off right here, probably even have more meadows like that. Maybe some of these can also be sheep pens like I was doing at the bottom. Actually, I didn't put that on the visualizer, but I did this in game. I did this right here. I might be able to do the same up here, seeing as I have more meadows over here. So that's an idea, because I will need a lot of wool. Wool takes up a lot of space without the use of any NFT, since meadows is the best way to go about it. This is just an idea right now of what I am thinking. So once the power plant is finished and once I can get gasoline production going, I will then start on building this out. Okay, I'm getting ready to build power plants now. I did take a little too long to get to this point, so I ran out of gasoline and I haven't been able to sell wool for a couple of minutes, but it's okay. I'm building the power plant now. I am also building the fuel storage over here, and now I need to build 2 refineries, this one for the gasoline and this one for the petroleum. I'm also still going to need to build another power plant, but that one won't take as long because I'll be able to have passive energy for the lumber mills. So I'll be able to get rid of these wind turbines as soon as this one gets built. Now with the power plant built, since I have the oil seep that's providing passive crude oil, it's going to allow me to craft energy without needing to craft crude oil, which is very efficient. Now I can remove the wind turbines as well as the worker house. And I have this refinery built up. I could make petroleum with this one, but I do want to make petroleum with this refinery over here. I'm continuing to make lumber, and now in the meantime I can build up this power plant. Really, I could just have this one make a petroleum real quick and then transition it to gasoline. I don't have the second power plant built. I can still make gasoline, but it's only going to have 3 of the 6 energy passive, but it will be able to pick up the other 3 energy from the warehouse, so I am able to make gasoline now in just a moment. Now that I'm able to make gasoline, I can go back to selling the wool that I'm making, and now I'm going to start off by making loggers, because I do see that it would be better if I can get more wood and lumber to build everything else that I'm going to be building. I did put on my visualizer that I would be putting 3 loggers here as well as over here. I'm actually going to do these loggers first, and I do plan on moving this warehouse, so I'm going to build out these roads and put the warehouse right here. Okay, while I was waiting for the loggers and the paved roads to build, I did make some changes to my plan. So I moved the storehouse over here. I think it would make more sense to have it there. And I'm gonna add more loggers because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need more loggers collecting wood for everything. And I added another ATV right here. But I am going to go ahead and build all of this out. It will take some time for my builders to get all the work done, but in the meantime I am going to continue to sell wool to get all of the cash that I need. But I should have just about all the cash that I would need to be able to build everything by now. I'm just going to build everything out, and I will be back hopefully by the time everything is finished building. Okay, so it's been a couple hours now. I got everything built minus the sheep pens over here. I decided not to build those, and I turned on all the fabric plants making cotton yarn, these are making wool yarn, and the art and decor shops are making pillows. So let's take a look at the production monitor now that it's been running for an hour and a half. It should give me a good idea on how all the production is doing. I am making 45 throw pillows with this idea already, which I think is pretty good. I still have spots that I'm not using right here, so there is still room for improvements. Let's break down the wool and the cotton. Wool is at 510 per hour. This would be enough to make 102 wool yarn per hour. However, I'm only making 88 wool yarn per hour. I think the reason for that is I need another fabric plant making wool yarn because 3 of them will not be enough. Lumber is at 235 per hour. My lumber yard is actually full of lumber, so that means I'm making plenty of lumber. I seem to still have enough wood for all of the sheep pen. The rate for the wood is not completely accurate because there's not always wood going into the lumber yard, but it is showing 1,700. If I try to break that down, it is 5 wood per lumber. That means I'm using about 1,150 wood towards the lumber production. That leaves about 550 wood for the sheep pens. That means I could potentially make at most 550 wool with the amount of wood that I'm making. Wood production is good right here, and I believe it could actually be improved if I add another logger or 2. I could add more loggers to improve the wood production, or potentially even get rid of some trees and replace them for more meadows. As for cotton, I am making 1,300 cotton per hour with all these cotton fields. That is a lot actually, because my silo is always full of cotton. Cotton yarn, it's 93 cotton yarn per hour, which I could make more cotton yarn, but it looks like I'm going to need another fabric plant making cotton yarn, because just like the wool yarn, 3 fabric plants is not enough. It looks like I'll need 1 more for each of those. And 93 cotton yarn, that's taking up a little less than 500 of the cotton. And then it is 8 cotton per throw pillow, so 45 throw pillows is taking up somewhere around a little less than 400 cotton. So I'm taking around 900 cotton total. It's actually less than that, so I'm overproducing cotton by a lot, like over 400. I probably could get rid of 2 of these cotton fields and still have more than enough cotton, or I can improve my cotton yarn production and I'll probably still have more than enough cotton. Since this is an easy item to figure out and break down, I only have to look at the wood, lumber, cotton, and wool. I already have an idea of how to improve this. I'm going to add another fabric plant somewhere making wool yarn and another one making cotton yarn. I need to make sure they're in spots where they have at least 1 energy. So I'm thinking right here, fabric plant for wool yarn. This one can be the fabric plant for the cotton yarn. And I can just move those loggers over here and maybe add an extra logger. As for the ATVs, it seems like I have more than enough ATVs. Most of the time they're actually asleep. All the ATV workers have to do is just go to the sheep pens and collect the wool and just bring them to the closest storehouse. They don't really have that much to do. Some of the sheep are going from the south side to the north side to collect meadows. I am thinking that I'm better off getting rid of these 2 sheep pens and replacing those with meadows and building the 2 sheep pens right here instead. Since I do have more meadows over here, I can see that not all of these are getting used. I can actually have more meadows in this row because I don't think I'm going to need that many buildings. So I'm back to the visualizer. Like I mentioned, both of these will be meadows, and I'm thinking of actually making those 3 sheep pens over there, adding more meadows here, have this one make cotton yarn, have this other one make wool yarn. That should give me all the cotton yarn and wool yarn that I need. I think I'm good with 2 art and decor shops as far as I can tell right now. I will move those loggers over here and probably add a 3rd logger. This is probably more than what I need. That still leaves me 2 empty spots, which for the moment I'll just use for builder houses. With this idea right here, I'm taking up all of the space. I might be able to add yet another sheep pen over here somewhere, like this spot. Actually, I am going to go ahead and do that, seeing as I have a lot of meadows there. So I'm gonna go ahead and build that out. Okay, another update. While I was building some of the things that I said I was going to build, I decided to make another couple of changes because I think it would make the build more efficient. In addition to these 4 sheep pens, I got rid of 2 cotton fields and a tree farm, and I'm also going to be adding 2 more sheep pens, and I will be getting rid of this extra tractor, seeing as 3 tractors is more than enough for 8 cotton fields. Adding a logger house, one of the logger houses that I got rid of here, and I'll be adding the other logger house here and then the extra one. I plan to get rid of these 3 ATVs. I'll go ahead and get rid of them now, replace those with meadows, and build them over here instead. So I'll still have the same number of ATVs, which is probably too many. I don't think I need all those ATVs. I may also get rid of this ATV and replace that with a meadow as well. So those are the changes that I'm making right now, and now I will wait until it's all built and turn on these 2 once those are ready and test it for a while. By the time you start crafting other items, you should be adding those to auto sell. I've added throw pillows, cotton yarn, and wool yarn with an auto sell quantity of 10. This is to prevent the warehouse from getting too full with one of the same item and then preventing me from crafting or depositing throw pillows into that warehouse. I've also added wood with an auto sell quantity of 10. This is to prevent the lumberyard from getting full of wood and then not allowing me to deposit lumber. I don't have to add lumber to auto sell because it doesn't matter if the lumberyard gets full of lumber, since I'm going to use all of it anyways, and I don't need to have wood in the lumberyard. And I've increased the trade quantity of wool to 20. This is to prevent me from selling wool if it reaches a quantity of 10, since I do plan on using all of the wool, converting it to wool yarn, but it is possible that the fabric plant workers are already busy making wool yarn, and sometimes the quantity may go to 10 wool because of it. I would also recommend adding petroleum just in case you are making more petroleum than you are gasoline, but you don't need to if that's not an issue. You also don't need to auto sell your gasoline, but you could if you wanted to. It won't give you that many points. It just gives you a little bit extra cash, and you don't have to auto sell lumber like I mentioned. You shouldn't be crafting any energy at this point, so you shouldn't have to sell it. If you are crafting energy, I recommend you turn off the power plants because the energy will take up too much space in your warehouse or take up too much of your trade time, since you're constantly going to have to be selling it, and then potentially you may run out of gasoline if you do that. Another thing I want to mention is the rotation of the lumberyard. I did decide to rotate the lumberyard like this so that it is easier for the lumber mill workers to deposit lumber or pick up wood from the lumberyard. Everything has been built and the production monitor has been running for 40 minutes now. Let's take a look at everything here. It is making 57 throw pillows per hour. Wool is at 560 per hour. That is enough for 112 wool yarn. As for cotton, I'm still overproducing cotton, which is fine. I have enough cotton for all of the cotton yarn and the throw pillows. Cotton yarn is at 116 per hour, so that is slightly higher than wool yarn. The true rate for this should actually be 56 throw pillows per hour. After running this for a couple more hours, I'm sure it'll stabilize at 56 throw pillows per hour. The reason for that is because the amount of wool I am making, I can only make 112 wool yarn per hour. Well, maybe possibly 113. Really, it will take a couple of hours for me to know the exact and real rate of wool and wool yarn as well as throw pillows. So somewhere between 56 to 57 throw pillows per hour is possible. This one's easy to break down. That's going to be everything. Hopefully this was able to help you out, especially if you're a new player. Throughout this entire guide, I went over different resources that will help you become competitive in Common Ground World and will help you win rewards from these competitions. If you watched this entire video, you are amazing. Please leave a like on the video. Leave a comment if you have any additional questions or feedback. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on my Common Ground World content. And feel free to join my Discord. I have a link in the description of the video. It is the Dub community. You can usually find me chatting there. And we also have a lot of helpful community members that may be able to help if you have questions and you want them answered fairly quickly. If you want to help support me, I have a Patreon, and you can also join my YouTube membership. Those links are in the description of the video. I appreciate your support, and thank you for watching.